Hey, my name's Ryan from Askreddit Tells, and today we're going to be looking at some of the coolest stories from r/pro revenge. But before we do that, if you could subscribe and hit that notification bell for us, it would really help out the channel. EK chops down my tree, costs her $700,000. It's been 2 years, and I can finally post about this. This is juicy, so get ready. Background information: we live in an old and big manor that has been split into 3 attached houses. The houses are about 150 years old and were built around 5 huge giant sequoias, which were about 200 years old. In the UK, giant sequoias are very rare, and 2 in our garden are up the house priced about £60,000. We lived next to 2 really nice neighbors, one young couple, one old couple. The story: unfortunately, our old neighbor passed away, so their child and her family moved in. Let's call her Jo. Jo was instantly a pain in the ass. We had been sharing chickens with the previous neighbors, and Jo agreed to keep sharing them. However, on her nights, she would constantly forget to put them away, so we would have to check them every night anyway. One night, her little brats thought it would be funny to open our personal duck pen in the night, which leads to a mass slaughter. Later, the chickens went the same way. About 2 years ago, there was a storm, and one of her sequoias somehow fell over and died. They were distraught, understandably, but from then on, the jealousy started. She would constantly complain about how lucky we were to have 2 sequoias in our garden, and how our sequoias was making too much shade in their garden. It wasn't. Anyway, we just thought it was Jo being a pain. There were a few dry threats like they'll chop it down or maybe the next storm will blow it down. Until we came back from a holiday to France to find a huge 6-meter stump and nothing else. I mean, how the F do you get rid of a 100-foot tree in like 2 weeks? 2 of our old British oak trees had been crushed as well. My mom and sister were crying and my dad were red in the face. We had no evidence Jo had done it. She claimed that there had been a storm and she had to get rid of it. We had a security camera at the front of the house, but you can get in the back if you go through a few fields. We then were given an $8,000 bill for damages to her property, and to have the tree chopped up and removed. The wood alone would have been worth a small fortune. We had lost all hope, and 2 weeks had passed when my dad came running in from the garden. We had put up a wildlife camera a few months ago, and we had caught everything. We got a lawyer on the phone and started an original specimen brought into the UK in 1860 along with the 2 that were in Elveston Castle Country Park. There were 218 around the UK, but only 60 now. He told us to call out an engineer because the roots might be in the foundation, so when they rot it could damage the house. Turns out we would need to redo the foundations. Then we took Jo to court and sued them for damage to property, trespassing, and lots of other smaller claims. The tree would cost $250,000 to have another sequoia that was 200 years put in and looked after. It's basically impossible. Plus the damage to the foundation, which was $200,000, and the 2 oaks, which were another $25,000. So with the smaller claims, it went to about £500,000, or $700,000 for you Americans out there. They had to move out. And we now have paid off the mortgage, done a lovely loft and a kitchen conversion, and have basically done up the house and garden as well as plant a 60-year-old sequoia tree in the back garden. We also had our kitchen counter and table made from the old sequoia. We now have chickens, ducks, and pygmy goats. They were very nice. I make a fortune babysitting their kids. Sorry for the essay. Too long didn't read? New neighbors chopped down original sequoia specimen that 200-year-old and is of the same tree to all ones in every single place or note in the UK, ends up costing them £500,000. I'm working on the SPAG, but I'm dyslexic. Please tell me where the errors are. Edit. Many of you wanted to hear about the court case, but she didn't stand a chance as soon as we revealed the footage to her, and the lawyer gave up. The people who cut the tree down gave us the countertops for free as a sorry. They were truly sorry. The neighbors had a second home, so they just sold the neighbor's house and moved back to their smaller one. We feel bad for the old neighbor, but we do visit their graves because they were like family. I can't show the footage of the wildlife cam, sorry. But I can show footage we got of hedgehogs. Link, don't know where to put, so I put it on r/aw. Also, there was a storm, but the sequoia was unharmed. That's what the video showed. Thank you so much for the silver. Holy shit, a gold. Thanks, WTF. Another one, thanks so much, bruh. An effing plat. Thank you so much. And another, oh my god. You guys are amazing, and a gold. You guys are great. At this rate, I won't need to pay for Reddit Premium. Thanks. And a GOAT reward? Thanks. Also, what does it mean? Well, first off, it means greatest of all time. And please never text like that again, because I might have to read it. Pastor lies, cheats, and steals. He gets exactly what he deserves. If you want to read on YouTube, that's okay with me. Wink wink. You can call me Caldra or OP, as my username is not easy. Sorry I'm not on mobile. Also, I'm sorry, but I need to be very vague about where this happened. Also, it was I am on mobile, not on mobile. Sorry about that. The cast. Pastor Bob. Not real name. Contractor. Me, Caldra, or OP if you want. Setup. I've been a computer technician for more than 15 years. I've worked on all kinds of computers. Everything from tiny point-of-sale computers to large rack server computers. I've been attending a new church. I was trying to date a woman where this church was her idea. That relationship crashed and burned, but that's a different story. Now we can start. It was about 5 years ago. I had just sat through a long sermon about generosity and giving to those that need help. At the end of the sermon, Pastor Bob asked for an additional donation because the church's roof needed repairs, and it would cost $20,000 US. That's right, 20,000 Freedom dollars for a new roof. After the service, I'm talking to my date. Pastor Bob walks over to me. I said hi and introduced himself. We talk a bit, and Pastor Bob asked what I do for a living. I tell him I'm a computer tech with a shop. As I'm telling him, I have a feeling he already knows what I do. Pastor Bob asked me to have a look at his laptop. It's being very slow. So I agree. I turn the laptop on and I hear a clicking noise. This clues me in it's probably the hard drive, but I can still access the data. This is a good thing because it means I can probably recover the data, so I tell Pastor Bob the hard drive is dying and it needs to be replaced. I also tell him I can probably recover the data. Pastor Bob asked me how much it would be to fix. I tell him most people I charge around $250, however I feel I can donate my time, so I would just need $60 for a new hard drive. Pastor Bob agrees, so I write up an invoice, new hard drive $60, labor 0, data recovery 0, and 2 to 4 days for repair. Pastor Bob signed the invoice, thus I take the laptop to my shop. I open the laptop. HP, why do you use so many screws and clips? I get the hard drive out and connect it to my recovery rig. I set up the recovery to clone a data to a new hard drive, but not the new one for the laptop, a high-end storage drive. I go home after locking up the shop. Next day, Monday, I open the shop and check the recovery rig. It's working, but it'll take at least 10 more hours. So I start working on the other tickets. Then at closing time, I lock up and go home. Next day, Tuesday, I've had Pastor Bob's laptop for 2 days. I open the shop and check my recovery rig. Good news! Recovery completed, 100% data recovered. Report says hard drive developed to many bad sectors. Now I have a choice to make. I could put a 1TB hard drive, $60, or a 120GB SSD, $60. Or I could pay some money myself for a 240GB SSD for $100. I decide why not and put the 240GB SSD in the laptop. I then clone all the data over from the new recovery storage drive to the new 240GB SSD. An hour later, the clone is done. So I checked everything and the laptop works great and is exactly like how it was before. The first hard drive died. Even the login still worked, therefore I call Pastor Bob and tell him his computer's done. He says that's great and he'll be there soon to get it. After about 45 minutes later, Pastor Bob walks in. I showed him his laptop working and much faster. He loves it and signs the pickup form. Then he pays me with a check for $60. It's important he pays with a check. I do a bank run on Monday and Friday. So that Friday at the bank, I am informed that Pastor Bob's check is void. What? Why? Pastor Bob had placed a stop payment on the check. Consequently, I called him and he ignored my call. I go to church on Sunday. Pastor Bob gives a sermon about not lying. I walk up and talk to him and he avoids me. So I leave and decide I'm going to write it off. I spend $100 and some time doing something nice. A few weeks later, a customer walks in looking for a new computer. To welcome him, I offer him a drink and go over his options. I'm chatting him up and he tells me he's a contractor. He mostly does sliding and roofing. He is thinking about offering solar. That's why he's getting a new computer. I ask how much does a new roof cost? He says up to about $10,000. So I ask him why someone would say $20,000. He had no idea. I thought it was strange. I asked about the church. Contractor said it would have been a simple around $5,000. And he could probably do it for less. Contractor buys a nice new laptop. Sorry, the setup took so long. The revenge starts now. Something about what the contractor said bugs me later. Why would Pastor Bob lie and say $20,000 for a new roof? And why would he stiff me for $60? Then I remember I never cleared the recovery rig storage drive. I check and there it is, Pastor Bob's laptop data. I look around, it's slow and I'm all caught up on repair tickets. Fittingly, I look around a bit. He had all his logins stored in a folder on the desktop, including his online dating logins and online poker. Did I ever mention Pastor Bob is married? I start printing his online dating messages. I look back and find Pastor Bob had been adult hugging several women from his online dating. He had been paying for his dates from the church's donation fund. I'm getting angry now. Then I realize he had adult hugged the woman I was dating when I was dating her. It was then I decided to break Pastor Bob. I printed out all his dating messages and the woman he adult hugged. For the last 6 months, except I refused to print the naughty pictures. It was an impressive packet. I then decide I need copies of the packet. Therefore, I order 100 packets printed to a major online printer. A few days later, my order of revenge packets arrived. These revenge packets are amazing, double-sided, staple-bound with a cover with Pastor Bob's face on it. Now the conclusion, and I think it's worth it. The church had a calendar of what the sermon might be about. A perfect Sunday was approaching. I go to church that perfect Sunday. I show up a bit late. Everyone's in the church, so I put a revenge packet on each car. I have a few revenge packets that are in yellow envelopes. Fittingly, I put them in the mail. I sent one to all the high-ups in the church. And I sent all special packet with some of Pastor Bob's naughty pics to Pastor Bob's wife. I sent the return address to the church. I also emailed a bunch of people the revenge packet from a burner email. A couple of weeks after I went back to that church, Pastor Bob was gone, so was the wife. Several of the women were also gone, including the one I was dating. I asked one of the important people there, what happened? The answer was amazing. I told them about the revenge packet and how everyone had gotten one. The day mine was given about evils of adultery and cheating on your wife. Thank you, church calendar. The fallout? Pastor Bob was fired and shunned. Multiple women from the church have not returned, including the one I was dating. Pastor Bob's wife is divorcing him. She is now the one that owned the house and cars. No longer Pastor Bob is now being sued by several people, including the ones that fixed the roof. He never paid any of them. There was also rumors of a criminal case for embezzlement. No one has seen Bob for a while now. The church might close if they can't find a new pastor. But the church's money is very low. Apparently, he also spent over $30,000 on online gambling. Too long didn't read? Pastor lies, steals, and cheats on his wife with multiple women, gets found out and doxxed, gets fired, divorced, and arrested, and no one knows I did this to him. Notes because you might ask. It's quite possible that several of the very young children and babies at the church were his, but I cannot confirm this. I have no idea where Bob is now. I would like to think still in jail. Edit. Thank you so much for the awards. It's amazing. And that does it for today's episode of r/Pro Revenge. Did you like it? Maybe check out some of our other stuff and even subscribe. As always, my name's Ryan from Askreddit Tells, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.